Hello, welcome back, Pancake Talk community and cake holders. Sorry for the delay. I think it's been a messy day. Some time before the episode, my partner Anicero, one of the PancakeSwap ambassadors, told me he couldn't be here today. So I started my morning and so sad because we like to run this together and try to be the good cop and the bad cop doing the questions. But also when we were start the guest today had a problem and they needed to delay a little bit. So at the end of the day, everything happened mostly at the same. So that's why we started a little bit late. So thanks for the ones who wrote me saying, "Hey, it's the podcast is starting. What's happening?" So thanks for the patient and also thanks for the charming messages. I realize there are people expecting the podcast and that's really nice. Okay, let's talk about why we are here today. I won't do the super extensive introduction that I like. So we don't want to keep everyone on the chair for so long. I'm happy about the guest for today, since I think this is not the first time I say this, but the more time I get into crypto, the more conservative I became in terms of my finance and my investments. And talking about that, we always think, or at least most of them think that Bitcoin is one of I mean, it's the bigger asset. It's the biggest asset in the crypto space. For some of you, maybe it's like an old lady that doesn't move. For another people, it's like the king on crypto. For me, I have to say that I really trust in Bitcoin, and I also do my personal investments with it too. But it's kind of difficult to think about Bitcoin and also think about DeFi, think about not holding or maybe just trading it. So today, our guest is going to talk about that there is another world for Bitcoin that maybe not all of you are aware of. I was aware, but I never tried by myself. So I want to introduce Jing. It's a little change in the person from Solv protocol, and this is our new guest. There is a slight change in the person who is going to attend. So let's give a warm welcome to Xing, and he can explain us why he's here today. Hey, Jing, how you doing?
Hi, Chef. Thanks for having me today. Um, I did a swap with my co-founder Ryan today because we wanted to switch things up a little bit. I haven't done much in the BNB ecosystem and I haven't done much with Pancake, so I thought this would be fun for myself at least. So that's why we had a bit of switch today. But definitely thanks for having us today.
And thank you for coming. It's really nice to have you here. I think the first partnership or the first time when we do something together was kind of long time ago. I was checking. I have like a history of things, so when I need to check something, I try to look it, and we are being partners for so long. So it's really nice to have you here. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your background, if we can know, and then we can how did you enter into the crypto ecosystem, for example?
Sure. Um, so my background has mainly been in traditional finance. I spend most of my time on the trading floor doing structured products and exotic options. Uh, and this was probably sometime about 3 to 4 years ago. Started getting into crypto, started exploring, and then as you go down the rabbit hole, things got more and more excited. So that's how really I think I came about doing this thing, and then together with Solv Finance, it's been a very, I would say, a long journey. It's been a very tricky journey, but I think I'm quite happy with where we are and what we have achieved. Definitely, there's still a lot more we can do. And together with Pancake and together with the BNB ecosystem, we definitely hope to do much more than what we see right now.
Nice. Yes, I'm seeing a comment from the community that it says the BTC bill is strong and there is a lot of new BTC utilities when you go down on the rabbit hole. I think you completely agree with this these terms.
Yeah, I mean, I think crypto is something that, and maybe not even just crypto, starting from blockchain and then going into crypto, right? It's something that when you just look at it, it's fairly intriguing. You really A lot of people just start by looking at the tech or trading some of the products, and then over time you start to realize that there are many interesting things happening over here. Number one, you also feel like for many of the people, barriers to entry are significantly lower than many other industries. But as you stay in this space longer and longer, your goal really is to, how do you make a difference? How do you make this space more interesting for everyone, right? At the end of the day, what we are looking to do is to make longevity for this space, to ensure that it survives, to ensure that in 5, 10, 20 years from now, this space is still around and actually makes a difference.
Nice. I really like what you say. It's like create a wide range of possibilities, like a wide range of, in this case, virtual applications, we can say. So yeah, thanks. I will link. Sorry, my dog is barking. The Web2 problems. Um, I want to see, think you said that. I would like to ask you how Solv protocol, how Solv BTC was thought. I mean, how do you end up saying, okay, this is what we want to create? And of course, the common question is, what problem is here to solve?
Okay. Um, I think it's an interesting question, and I would probably tie it together with a little bit more on how the Bitcoin ecosystem has been evolving. So this was probably sometime in the middle of last year, probably Q2, Q3 last year, where we were essentially doing a lot of strategies and doing a lot of offerings that were generating returns and generating yield in very much a vault format, right? Where users deposit their assets into a vault and then it generates returns for them. When the time is up, they come and redeem. But then we started to realize that as the markets evolve, we can't have something that is static. We needed to have, instead of a vault, we needed to have a token which is yield generating in nature, and users can actually take this asset around into DeFi to really get involved. And that's how we really came up with the idea of having an asset, in this case Bitcoin, that is yield generating, right? And not only does it generate yield by itself, you can take it into dexes, to lending protocols, to perp dexes, to launchpads to actually do stuff with it. And I think that's what really the initial idea on BTC and Solv BTC and how it actually evolved. So that's really number one. And then if I talk about how it lines up with the Bitcoin ecosystem, if we look at it, and maybe not many of you may be that familiar, but like if you think about it, like the whole Bitcoin narrative or the Bitcoin evolution, at least for this cycle, really started in Q3 last year, right? Where the first wave was a lot of ordinals, BRC20s, really first usage of assets on the Bitcoin chain. Whether you hear about transcription, inscription, unisats, and those were the things that were happening over there. And then that, in my view, that was really the first wave, and that really made a huge difference. The second wave was the evolution of a lot of Bitcoin L2s, Bitcoin layers, Bitcoin sidechains, and um, Bitcoin meta protocols. So you saw that really as the next wave where many chains are building ideas on how they can actually link up Bitcoin to the chains and assets to the chain. And I think that did really, really well, right? I think we were part of this. We were on Merlin chain. I think we were quite successful. I think I give a lot of credit to how the Merlin team did, to Jeff did, and I think they definitely helped us a lot along the way. And then as we go into the current evolution and probably the next phase, which is now you have new users in the ecosystem, number one. You have new assets and new TVL in the ecosystem, number two. Then really on the next step, number three is, where are these assets and where are these users going to? they are going to be looking for returns, they're going to be looking for yield, they're going to be looking for something to do with the assets. And that's really the next phase of where we are in, right? How do you put these assets to work? How do you generate returns and how do you generate yield for all these products? So I'm really excited on where we are right now because I think in a short span of 6 to 12 months, we have came very, very far.
Nice, nice, nice. I'm sure if Aniceto were here, he would interrupt you when you say Bitcoin and chill. And there are two words that not in the word in the head of the people who have been here for a long time. It's kind of a bad word. Like when you think about crypto, Bitcoin, you don't think about yield. It's kind of a lot of questions came to my mind. Like, is it safe? How does it work? Like it's different to think about DeFi, but I will come up with that later. I think this question you get all the time, but I need to do it because I also need to understand. Um, it could be taken like what's the unique value of Solv BTC, but what I really want to ask is if you think about BTC in DeFi, I think about wrap versions like in BNB Chain, in Arbitrum, double BTC, BTCV. We can call it. There are a lot. How do you try to create this Bitcoin unique reserve, and how do you differentiate it? Could you explain how that works in this field?
Sure. So I probably will introduce two ideas here that we believe makes a lot of sense. So the first idea is a Bitcoin reserve, what we talk about. So you mentioned, and exactly you mentioned it, in DeFi, there are many, many wrapped versions of Bitcoin, right? On BNB chain, there is Binance Bitcoin. On ETH, there is WBTC, there is your Coinbase BTC, there's your Threshold BTC, FBTC, and many others. On Avalanche, there's Avalanche BTC. And on Bitcoin mainnet, there is real Bitcoin. But then all these Bitcoins are not interchangeable, right? You bring from one chain to the other, you can't really do anything. And that's really the goal behind Solv BTC. The goal behind Solv BTC is really to unify a lot of these assets to create one single standard that you can move around across different protocols, different chains. But more importantly, we are at a very interesting inflection point because increasingly more and more of BTC assets and more crypto assets are in the hands of traditional users, traditional finance, family offices, and more we see ETFs. How do you bring these assets on chain? How do you tokenize an ETF and bring them on chain? They should theoretically be no different from the Bitcoins that are wrapped with BitGo or in Binance, right? The goal is to unify all these things and bring them on chain. So that's really what Solv BTC looks to do. And then once users come on chain, that brings us to the second step, which we call the staking abstraction layer. When users come on chain, when the Bitcoin assets come on chain, they are looking for returns, they're looking for yield. And what we have done is to build a staking abstraction concept where users through Solv can get access to the different types of yield or the different types of return opportunities that Bitcoin can offer throughout the entire DeFi ecosystem.
Nice, nice, and nice, nice. Okay, it's like you keep talking, and I still feel a lot of questions to do it. You are going to speak a lot today. Okay, but before talking, I will cover you, but we are in DeFi, also on Bitcoin and on many of the chains, and I think it's the one of the biggest objectives. Sometimes is get it easier. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to say at some chains. But how important do you think decentralization is in the mission of Bitcoin and in the mission of Solv protocol and Solv BTC? And how do you ensure that the platform remains decentralized?
So it's a good question. It's a tough question. Bitcoin in DeFi right now is a series of trust assumptions. Because the way Bitcoin is being handled, which is at the moment a lack of smart contracts, you have to rely on a range of trust assumptions. And you tend to see two solutions across the board, right? The first solution is a centralized custody solution, and there are quite a number of this. You see BitGo, you see Coinbase, and those are some examples, right? And then on the other extreme, you have the decentralized solutions like Threshold, Thesis BTC. You have DLC BTC, right? So our belief is that users in the ecosystem will have um, different preferences, and it may not be completely possible to change it. But what we can do is we can cater to both spectrums by having Solv BTC accept assets across the range. We ourselves obviously do plenty of due diligence and plenty of work to ensure that the underlying assets are safe, well custodied, and the tech is trusted. And that's, in our view, how we want to be as inclusive as possible for the users across the entire spectrum.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like a really difficult job, and you have a lot of work to do. Do you find anything else in terms of challenge? I don't know, scalability, security. There are a lot of things that people think on Bitcoin are solved, but when you talk about bringing Bitcoin to these new markets, I'm saying new markets because maybe for us it's well known, but it's really difficult when I go out. I talk about Bitcoin. None of the, I mean, my friends only know what Bitcoin is. Talking about Bitcoin in DeFi, it's like mind blowing. So I think there are a lot of things to do. But in terms of scalability and security, for example, do you find a pretty tough challenge to address?
So what I tend to realize is that over the last 6 to 9 months, having Bitcoin more active in DeFi was definitely a very new thing for many chains, many users, and many protocols. So was it a challenge initially? Yes. And we definitely had to make quite a bit of an effort and quite a bit of progress. But what we realized is that the benefits to this definitely outweighs the challenges. What are the benefits? Benefits by bringing this is, number one, you have pretty much the largest asset in this space actually being more active in DeFi apart from just sitting in lending protocols. That's number one. Number two, together with it, you bring in an entire new range of users. And I think this is very underappreciated. The users that came in via Bitcoin are not, in my view, are not your traditional Ethereum holders and Ethereum users. They are the ones that, in my view, never really interacted much with DeFi. They were the guys that diamond handed and held their assets in cold wallets or traded on centralized exchanges. Why I say that is because we do a lot of Twitter spaces and a lot of calls with Telegram groups and AMAs with this crew. Like in the initial stages, I had to explain to them what's a Uniswap EMM DEX. I had to explain to them what's a GMX perp DEX. So they had no idea about these things and all, but they were very savvy on how to play it. So to me, it's an incremental positive for the entire ecosystem, both from a user perspective and both from a asset perspective.
Nice. I can imagine you explaining how that works. When I see the
It's like imagining you go on a call and say, "Hey, I need to explain to you what is PancakeSwap."
yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot because we need to start. I mean, every time when you met new people, it's like, hey, what do you do for a living? And I say, oh, I prefer to say I work in finance sometimes because if I say, hey, I work in a decentralized DEX, it's like, what are you saying to me? And okay, do you know like an exchange? No, I don't know what exchange is. Okay, we need to go back. Okay, do you know crypto? No, just a little bit. Okay, and then you say a term and you need to go back like 3 4 years of explaining things, and that's for completely on-ground Web 2 people. But talking about Bitcoin, it's like you need to mind blow them about what Bitcoin is, and then you can start about Solv protocol. If not, you are going to kill them. Their mind is going to explode. And my mind explodes when I see how it works in this chart. It's like I will just jump off from the questions that I was preparing for this. Could you explain me a little bit about Solwar, what Solwar is and how it works?
Sorry, I think you broke up a little bit. I couldn't hear the question. Do you mind repeating, please?
Oh, sorry. I mean, it's how it works in terms of security, but what's the usage of Solwar?
Sorry, the usage of Solv. I couldn't
Ward. Yeah, sorry. This one, the diamond one, Soul Guard. I think it's the
Oh, Solvguard. All right, got it. Thank you. So the way we think about it is as twofolds, right? So on the underlying, a lot of the Bitcoin assets, especially those that come in via the Bitcoin layer ones, many of them are custodied across various trusted institutional custody solutions. On the second layer, there's always an on-chain representation. Assets that sit on chain, assets that sit on EVM chains, assets that sit on DeFi, right? So what we have done is we have designed and we have created an entire system that we call SolveGuard. What it allows to do is it's a closed loop system where the BTCs or the wrap BTCs can only stay within that closed loop, such that uh, no one, not even us, can actually take the assets out of the ecosystem, right? So you can move it around to different protocols and stuff, but we as Solv, we don't have access. We can't take it out. And that's really the goal of SolveGuard, right? So it's a hybrid. So essentially as Solv, you are, I would say it's a combination of centralized trust assumptions plus DeFi, where we try to make it as decentralized, as smart contract based as possible, where we want to be able to scale it such that users can actually trust us and trust the platform.
great. Thanks. Sorry, I made a mistake. I made a mess trying to pronounce guard. Non-English native speakers problem. Talking about a little bit about what Bitcoin is in terms of, I mean, for the world in general, for the general public. Um, I thought, or always think about, maybe talking about DeFi Bitcoin. It creates me a, a range of possibilities, but it was described always as both a store of value and a medium of exchange. Do you think that role is going to change in the future with these kind of solutions that, for example, Solv Protocol brings to the table?
So I still firmly believe that Bitcoin is a store of value. Uh, it is very efficient in what it does because it does nothing, at least to this day so far, right? And I think that's why it's a good store value. But increasingly, as technology and improvements are being done, Bitcoin can also be put to work. And conceptually, what I think about it, and it's much more of a TradFi thought process, which is how do you enhance your return and how do you enhance your yield with an asset that you have? And that's where we are right now, right? Where you can put your Bitcoin to work, where you take a certain amount of risk and you get a certain amount of return. And in general, the greater risk you take, the greater your returns can generate. So is it still a store of value? Yes. But beyond that, you can actually do more with that, which in that sense almost creates additional utility for this asset. And why I think this is interesting, because just beyond vanilla crypto or crypto Twitter users, or even existing crypto users, you open the door for many, many additional users outside this ecosystem. You talk about TradFi, you talk about institutions. I think these are the things that will start to attract them to get into the space. And that's the way forward, in my view, on how to actually grow this entire ecosystem.
I gladly I was mute. I laugh out loud when you said that it's because it does nothing. It's funny because it's true, but it's like you are not going to touch my Bitcoin. It's stored there for 5 years in the future. But yeah, you are completely right about it. And how do you see you mentioned ETFs, you mentioned institutionals when you do the introduction. How do you see it's in Jing words, it's in your personal words. You can tell me whatever you think about. how think this institution and big players are going to maybe evolve the ecosystem. We can say how, not say evolve because maybe they are not going to, but how they are going to be mixed and merged in the Bitcoin ecosystem. It creates a good environment. It creates not, in your opinion.
So it's an interesting question, and I don't think I have all the answers to that. Um, as we have many conversations with many of the parties that you talked about, whether it's ETF issuers or whether is it your family offices or your traditional institutions, what we can see is what I can tell you is as follows. The developments, especially the ability to generate returns and yield on Bitcoin, number one, is something that many of them are paying attention to, right? They are thinking about this more and more as a beyond a store of value. How do I enhance the trade? How do I make it more interesting? So that's really number one. And because they hold things in pretty sizable assets, making 3, 4, 5, 6% actually makes a difference for them. Right? For many of us in this space, what is 5%? I think people just rather go punt on meme coins, right? But then for many of them, when you're holding portfolios of 100 millions or billions of dollars, 5% makes a lot of difference, right? And so that's how they're really thinking about it. How do you progress? How do you grow? How do you measure your risk and do it in a controlled manner? So I am personally very excited with the way the thing is evolving. I think over time, increasingly, more and more of these players will come into the ecosystem. Um, we talk about us being in DeFi and it being decentralized. I think the reality is that it will slowly start to move in terms of a pendulum towards more of a middle ground, where there will definitely be some form of centralization or regulations and stuff in place. I think it's probably going to be a little bit of a hybrid of both, and time will tell on how this thing actually will settle down.
Great answer. Great answer. Sorry for putting you between the sword and the wall. It's just for knowing, because when we do this kind of stuff, we always talk about the protocol perspectives and how the protocol sees. But I really like to ask like personal questions. What's your opinion about it? Because maybe we can have different opinions, and that's the great part of the system. I love to say that we all come or we all came from, in this case you came from traditional finance, so maybe the champ was about the tech side and all the possibilities that crypto gives. But when I interview people, it's like, no, I came from, I don't know, communication, I came from marketing. It's like, how did you ended up in crypto? Some of them were lawyers. It's kind of really insightful how crypto is the rabbit hole for a lot of different professionals. So all of them gives me different points of view, and I think that's really something we need to put into to bring into the table. You mentioned that you were explaining, for example, how edX works for people who actually knows Bitcoin from, for example, storing it or I don't know. So, but that's adoption, and I think Bitcoin is one of the. I mean, it's the entrance door for many of us. I mean, in my case, I enter because from DeFi, but it was just lucky. But how what I will also mix this question between Solv protocol and also your perspective. But what strategies are using to increase this adoption of Solv BTC? You have the users like on-grind users like me. You also talk to with big players. How you are trying to um, increase this kind of adoption, and if you want to give me your opinion about how do you see the adoption in the future, I will be love to hear that too.
Sure. So in terms of how Solve does it and how Solve views it, I feel like our goal is to offer a range and a variety of options for our users. So for users who, in my view, are more risk averse and want to go with something more vanilla, what they tend to do is a more standard staking play, right? in crypto, users are quite familiar with the concept of staking. But what really is staking, right, in the traditional finance aspect? It's almost like selling an insurance premium, right? If nothing happens, you collect the insurance premium. If if nothing happens, you collect the insurance premium. And then if something happens, obviously you need to start to pay. And that's really what staking is in a nutshell, right? So increasingly we have places where you can stake your Bitcoin. Yesterday alone we launched a new staking offering called solvbtc.core. This is in partnership with another Bitcoin layer 2 called Core Chain. uh, so I think we were quite happy with that. We sold out 500 BTCs in slightly under an hour, right? So there are many of these offerings. There's also our Babylon LSTs, which is very similar to EigenLayer, but much more for the Bitcoin side. And then as you go across to the other side of the spectrum, and what you have on the slide earlier, you have more trading orientated stuff. So many users in this space are familiar with Athena, for example, and the basis trading. So this is something that we did a partnership with them to actually launch a product like this. If you're more crypto and DeFi native, then you're familiar with the perp dexes like GMX, like Jupiter. And what we do is also we run trading strategies and trading offerings on those places, right? So I think there's a very, very good range for a wide variety of users. And then it's really for them to pick their own poison, right? If you have a certain type of risk profile, if there's a certain type of returns that you want, that's where you are focused on.
Nice, 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 nice. I was checking first. I want to say congrats. Having 1.4 billion TVL, it's kind of a thing. It's a lot. More in like the markets we are seeing right now. So first, congrats for that. And also, I was checking the both partnerships with Ithina and also the core also looks really really good for me. Like I'm kind of a vanilla guy, but would you like to tell me a little bit about this? These are kind of recent these partnerships, right? I don't remind seeing them when I checked the the page some time ago.
So Athena has been running for quite some time. I think at least 3, maybe 4 months. The core LST was actually just launched 24 hours ago, actually. So it actually launched pretty much yesterday. So a lot of these are new, and that's why what we are trying to do conceptually is we want to build a platform, right, which we call staking abstraction, where users can stake their Bitcoin or use their Bitcoin in different manners possible to generate returns. So over the course of the last few weeks or the last few months and the next few weeks and the next few months, we'll have many, many more of these coming out. A lot of these things I wouldn't say are new. We have already been doing it, but we want to further battle test it to ensure that actually when we launch it live to our users, we are going to be very comfortable with it.
Great, nice. I I laugh when you say quite some time, and sometimes it was 3 months. It's like we are so used to times on crypto. It's like you said 3 months, and for if you go to the normal world, it's like
I agree.
yesterday, and for us, it's like no, 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 2016. It was 3 months ago.
I agree with you. Like 3 months crypto in a quarter, a lot changes. Right. I mean, you
Yeah,
and I.
it's a quarter, right? Yeah. Yeah, completely. Yeah, go and don't mute yourself. You can laugh to the mic. Don't worry. I was just thinking. Yeah, it's a quarter. We had our quarter calls like yesterday, and it's no, it's a new quarter. There are a lot of things to do. It's like always the same, right?
But I think that's one of the things that keep people excited about this space because it's so fast moving. Things change, which is not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but it really forces you to keep on your toes, right? If you check out for one quarter, you come back, a lot of things will be different.
Yes, 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 yes. I think I checked the site like in the previous quarter or something. No, no, in Q2, I think when you had I don't know. Uh, I think 800. Millions before below 1 billion on TBL, so I can't recall when it was because I was kind of interested on how this works, and I see also there are a lot of things added. But yeah, it was, I don't know, 4 months or something. It's, you never end up to understand something that it's changed again. So it's kind of, you need to be so super quick, and I need to say the rests after working this kind of careers needs to be equal to the times you work, or your brain it's going to be fried.
I agree. I think things change, but then at the end of the day, we need to be firm on what we are building. We need to constantly be checking from a product market fit perspective, does this make sense? We need to be constantly checking if what we are going in terms of a direction, does it make sense?
Yeah, completely agree. Things that works today maybe not work tomorrow. And talking about tomorrow, how do you see the future? We are actually going to the last questions. Um, Talking about, you know, Bitcoin and crypto trends are not really the closest friends. Usually, Bitcoin goes from one highway and the trends like memes, RWA, I don't know, NFTs at their moment, all goes from other places. And how do you see the Bitcoin technology, the blockchain technology? How do you see all of that from Solv protocol? How do you see it's going to evolve? We can talk about future, like, I don't know, the next year, if we should not go super far away.
So I would think that Bitcoin Bitcoin eco is a little bit different from the broader DeFi, EVM, and stuff like that. Why? Because in the last 5 6 years, most of the investments, most of the efforts have been spent on the EVM side, largely because there are more developers, more builders, just lower hanging fruits, right? So infrastructures have been built, a lot of it is wasted, but time was spent there. I think in Bitcoin we are going through a similar cycle, right? Where people are building a bunch of infrastructures, whether it's chains, whether it's bridges, whether it's UI UXs and stuff like that, right? So we're going to go through that whole process, right? But because we have seen what has happened in other places, EVM chains, Cosmos chains, Solana, right? So there will be some mistakes that we can hopefully avoid, but we're still going to have to go through that entire process. But what I tend to see is like this whole thing tends to be much more supercharged in terms of the speed of development, in terms of the timeline of development. So there are definitely a lot of interesting developments, right? So in the next 6 to 12 months, and even probably the next 6 to 12 years, right? Number one, as an asset class, you're probably going to be quite sure that this is going to be still around and this is still going to be relevant, right? But how is it going to be evolving? Where are you going to be able to see contracts, protocols, chains, DApp actually being built on Bitcoin layer one directly, or even via Meta protocols, right? These are things that are not too far fetched. It's not too far away. Uh, is it going to attract a lot more users into the space? For sure, the answer is yes, right? So I'm very excited on how this thing is going to evolve, how this thing is going to develop, and the reason we don't know makes it even more exciting, because if we know the answer, then there's no excitement over there.
I really love how I hear you, because we are not seeing each other. How I hear you completely into the rabbit hole when you talk about the crypto ecosystem and also about Sol BTC. That's something to say. So I will say congrats to that, and to add a little bittersweet to this lovely moment. What's for you? And I'm talking maybe about you, Jing, and not about Sol Protocol. For you, what's the biggest misconception that Bitcoin and all these DeFi ways, Sol Protocol, for example, people has from? Like, what's the biggest misconception people has of this environment?
Um, that's a tough question, actually. I would say the biggest misconception users have, people have, is I think probably the biggest misconception people have of this space is really that the entire community speaks in one voice. And I think that is very, very flawed, because if I look in the ecosystem I'm building right now, you have people who are very, very forward looking, doing stuff with Opcat. Then you are having people that are very Bitcoin maxis, right? Who just really want nothing to be done on their Bitcoin. And then you have a whole range of people, myself included, that probably sits in the middle, right? So when we talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin assets, right, it's not a one single community you're talking about. It's many, many differentiated users and many, many differentiated communities with their own ideologies on how this thing will go. And this is why, in terms of progress, even though progress will be done, uh, things will, how should I put it? I think there will be different opinions, and it will be interesting to see how this thing moves forward.
I wasn't expecting that answer, so thank you. Yeah, I think you have your point on that. It's really difficult to not. I mean, me working on the community. Sometimes it's really difficult to think about the community as something uh, like a like a one thing, since you have different kind of people, and we are not seeing too much the Web2 part and the Maxis part. So you have a really more difficult thing to solve. In Bitcoin, it's really more wider in terms of adoption and people. So yeah, thank you for that answer. And just to finish, I don't want to keep you um, glued to the chair answering our our questions. How all the listeners, all the PancakeSwap community, and also the Solv protocol community, and all the crypto users that are hearing this podcast, how get how they can get involved with Solv BTC, and what are the next steps for them if they want to jump in?
Well, since we are on a Pancake podcast, I would think the common denominator in terms of here from the user experience is most of our users and most of our partnerships has really been on BNB chain, in which we are very grateful both to Pancake and the chain for being very supportive of us. How users can get involved is definitely using one Binance BTC or one BTC to deposit in our protocol to get one soft BTC, and that's where your journey really begins, right? It's about exploring, and some users told me it's about making mistakes, losing money, but really it's an exploration process, right, on how users can get access and uh, get access to the multiple opportunities across the various chains. Uh, Watch out for the developments over the next few days and the next few weeks. We'll be launching quite a few other offerings and quite a few other products that we are very excited to share, that we want our community, our users to be able to get access to take part in, and definitely we will keep you informed.
I super agree on the part of losing money. Yeah, you won't find anyone who doesn't lose anything in their crypto journey, and if they haven't lose, either or they are too vanilla or they haven't done anything, like only storing Bitcoin on a cold wallet. So I couldn't agree more with with your statement. We are finalizing. I personally really enjoy it because some of these questions I really meant to do it. I will have pretty much more. I don't want to bore anyone. So thanks, Ying, for coming today. At some point, I said, "Oh, these guys maybe had a problem. Maybe they are not going to come." I really want to. I asked them a lot of questions. I was a little bit sad, so we could do it at the end. So thanks a lot for coming. If you want to say anything else before we wrap up, the mic is all yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think from our perspective, definitely very happy to be here. Very glad for the support that the Pancake team has been giving us. Definitely, we want to see how we can do more, both on the chain and as well as in other chains and other ecosystems as well.
Great. As you know, this podcast is going to be it will remain on Twitter, but Twitter doesn't say these things really easy to access. So unless you check the feed, it will be not really accessible. But you can find it in our AMA playlist on YouTube. So if you couldn't check this live, go to PancakeSwap official profile on YouTube, and you will be able to see it. Okay, we are saying goodbye for today. Thanks, Ian, again. Thanks the whole Solv Protocol team for coming to the podcast. It was a really nice, good session. And good night, good evening, good morning. Depends on where you are. And thanks for being here. Tune in for another insightful episode with a new guest on the Pancake Talks weekly podcast. Thank you so much for coming today. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.